With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Welcome, everyone, to the Goddess Vibration podcast. This is Ali.
And this is Tiarra.
So we are curious to know, out of all of our listeners, how many of you just so happen to be channelers or mediums or people who just get very insightful downloads? They're all kind of part of the same family. But today, Tiarra and I want to go down the rabbit hole of channeling. Since we are both channelers, I think it's really important to have an open discussion on what channeling is, the things to look out for when you channel, because not every entity, being, spirit, guide, they're not all authentic. And unfortunately, there are cases where you might be channeling I've seen it described on TikTok as like a jinn. So like an imposter energy, a fake energy. They call them jinns, according to this one spiritual woman. And unfortunately, it happens. And I know other channelers who have channeled imposter energy, fake energy, and I know Tiarra has. As a result of all of this, we want to open up the discussion and talk about how misleading a fake energy can take you, where it can take you, and how correcting it is very difficult.
So, channeling is such an interesting thing. It's a beautiful gift. And, I've been so grateful to have had the opportunity to do so. And it can be very profound and life changing in so many different ways. But, you know, as we know with spirituality, there's duality. So with the light, you also have some of the dark that comes along with that. And, my first experience with channeling was, oh my gosh, probably back in like 2019. It was 2018 or 2019. And I noticed that I could like get downloads like in the form of words. So I sort of attributed it to claircognizance coming online, and I would just get like words and insights about specific things that would always turn out to be accurate. And I also noticed that I could hear my guides. I called them my guides at the time. They were just energies that would like tell me things or say things to me. I didn't recognize that what I was doing was a form of channeling, but like they would just like, give me little tips and tools and resources. And I remember specifically, I was having some thoughts. I had just had an awakening, and they were like, you should go read some books. And I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I want to read. and ended up reading this book that was just like an incredible dive into spirituality. And I remember almost everything I read in that book till this to this day. But when I really started to dig into channeling, I did it through automatic writing, which is kind of like an entryway into opening up that communication channel. It's sort of like the entry level start for people who are interested in channeling or think that they might be channelers. So, what I did is I just took like a pen and a pad and I set a timer for 10 minutes. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to write whatever I hear, write whatever comes to me. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to write. And so I sat there for 10 minutes and wrote like one of the most profoundly beautiful messages of encouragement and guidance that I've ever received to this day. And right when I was done, like I put like the last period in the sentence and the timer went off. And then I read it back and I think I sat there and cried for like 15 minutes because that's how beautiful it was. So that was like my foray into it. And then from that point, I started opening up a little bit more and noticed that I could communicate to other beings and even like some of the archangels and so forth. And so I sort of was in this space where I was like, you know, this is so amazing and this is so cool. And I want to channel everything and I want to know everything. And who's going to talk to me next? And, you know, who are you? Um, which, by the way, when I first initially started channeling, I didn't ask who they were. I would just channel, uh, which we don't recommend for various reasons. But initially, when I started, that's what I did. And so I would just get like random stuff here and there. And I heard some people, or I call them people, entities, beings, tell me things about my journey and my past and where I was headed and like all this stuff I had no idea about that I just embraced and believed because I didn't have any reason not to. I also took a channeling course. Once I realized that I could channel, I was like, well, maybe there's a way to hone this a little bit and maybe there's a way to do this better. Or maybe there's some things that I'm lacking or missing. So why don't I just take this course? Because why not? And I was in Arizona at the time. So they have like a spiritualist church in Phoenix that hosts spiritual events. And I ended up stumbling upon a channeling course that was done by two gentlemen who offer channeling services. And they actually have a book of like all the stuff they've channeled over the years, mostly of guidance and messages from a group of entities they refer to as the guides. And so I took this class and they taught us grounding. They taught us how to open up our channel to welcome beings and so that we can receive information and messages. And I remember being in that class and channeling uh, an extraterrestrial entity that I couldn't connect with because its frequency was too high. I channeled an entity that I think was a dead being that lived at the church. I channeled a Native American who was an ancestral connection to the land, and just all these different entities that sort of tested my capabilities a little bit. I will say one of the things they didn't share in that course was discernment. And we're going to talk about why that's so significant in channeling because, you know, as Ali mentioned, you have light entities and then you have dark entities, but they never once mentioned discernment at all. And, you know, looking back, I'm a little surprised that they didn't because it's such a critical piece when it comes to channeling messages and, you know, being able to extract wisdom from the entities that have your best and highest versus the ones who do not. So we didn't get that information, but it was kind of a good segue into opening the channel broader to more beings and entities and energies. And the experience for what it was actually very profound. And I enjoyed it. It was beautiful and it was a lot of fun. It's just, I feel like that one piece was missing that would have just kind of like brought it all together and made it like a whole complete package. So, we wanted to have this conversation just because it seems like when it comes to some of that training and stuff that's out there on channeling, I don't know why this always gets glossed over, but discernment and imposter energies and looking out for them and knowing what to look for and expect just always gets glossed over. And it makes me insane and it makes my head want to explode. But we have a podcast for a reason. And I'm hoping as this conversation moves along, we will have more understanding around how you can go into channeling with discernment and get the information you need without being misled.
I just want to touch upon discernment for a second. My understanding, and Tiara, you can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that discernment isn't is a gift, is actually its own spiritual gift. Not everyone was born with it, not everyone is a natural. It is something everyone has the ability to learn, which is great, but not for most people, I would say. Most don't have it. And if you don't know about it, if you don't know that it's a thing, how would people know you need it when you come into any psychic ability, not just channeling? If you open up any of your clairs and if you don't have discernment, how would you know what's fake, what's real, if it's a bad energy, if it's, there for your best and highest good? How would you know these things?
Well, you wouldn't. You wouldn't at all. And the crazy thing about imposter energies that go after people who channel is that they can mask their frequency to look like any divine angelic being or guide or ancestor. And like, it just blows my mind that this is a thing that can happen. And that's not to say that these beings don't have information that can be helpful to you. Like, that's not what I'm saying. They still can. It's just, I think what distinguishes them is that you have the beings that are service to self oriented, and then you have the ones who are service to others oriented. And it's the service to self oriented ones that are the mischievous ones, right? Like they come in with specific self um, intentions when it comes to their needs and selfish intentions. And then they sort of just kind of pretend to be a being that's there to help you, but maybe there's some other ulterior motive to it. And, I've heard stories of individuals experiencing something like this with people who claim to be their guides or guides. And the interesting thing about guides is that sometimes you might have a karmic link to one of them. And so maybe there's some things there that are karmic related that might affect the relationship you have with a specific guide. And so I've seen sometimes people talk about kind of having friction with some of these guides that they recognize are perhaps don't have their best and highest and sort of navigating through that in their own way by establishing boundaries and trying to be more aware of the intentions and behaviors of specific guides. But it just blows my mind the extent that some of these entities go to just to have access to you and to say things to you that perhaps are not for your best and highest, that perhaps aren't going to lead you in the direction you need. And so, recognizing that discernment is a gift, I think it makes more sense that these specific teachers didn't share or express that, because I'm wondering now, did they have the gift of discernment? They may not have. And I will say, when it comes to the channeling that they did, they were very flamboyant. Like they were homosexual men. They were a couple. They were very flamboyant. And one of the gentlemen who channels in a very like in the same way. Like an entity will come through and he's moving his hands and he's sitting certain ways and he's changing his posture and his voice changes. And it's just remarkable to witness the extent of the channeling that they were capable of. What I always wondered after I left that class was, how much of that was authentically channeled? Like, I don't know. To this day, I don't know. Especially now considering that I don't think they ever once considered discernment and any of their teachings and any of their channelings. I even sent an email and I was like, hey, I said this verbatim to them, hey, I took your class. I am struggling a little bit with discernment when it comes to some of these beings. Can you share any tips or recommendations? And I never heard back. And so I was just like, wow, I guess that kind of goes to show a little bit that it just wasn't a concern for them. It wasn't a thing for them. They taught us to trust everything that came through, that you can trust the lights and that the beings that come through are of the light as long as you set that intention. And so that was my philosophy. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna do the same, I guess. Um, and apparently that's worked for them. I don't know much about where they are these days. They did have a website that I would get updates on. Like they had like a newsletter and a blog, I believe. And I was looking forward to them publishing their book, which I think they've done at this point. But outside of that, I haven't kept up with them. It's just I'll always remember that course, and I'll always remember the experience, and we'll also always remember some of the.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Stuff that I've kind of had to navigate on my own. But I do wish them the best. They were fantastic teachers, and I did enhance my ability to channel just through that course.
So we don't want to sound discouraging when we say, well, you don't, because that's exactly was Tiara's response to my question when I said, like, how do you know what's real and what's not without discernment? And I think anyone who wants to get into their psychic abilities, anyone who wants to work on their spiritual gifts, people need to know you have to have discernment. I have seen very few spiritual teachers even talk about discernment, and it's so disheartening because it, it you can easily be misled. And I know that Tiara was misled. So Tiara and I actually both came into our channeling gifts around the same time. Hers was like maybe 6 months before mine. And it was really interesting. Like Tiara used to send, like before my gift even came in, she used to send me these really like cool messages, and I was like, "Whoa, that's so cool! How did you find that out?" And she'd be like, "Oh, I channeled it." And I'm just like, "Huh? What is this gift of channel? Am I ever gonna get this gift of channel? This is so cool."
Right.
And it is really cool, but I don't know when I'm going to talk about when I came into my gift of channel. When I came into my gift of channel, it happened very rapidly and it happened very quickly. And I remember some of the downloads that first came in, and immediately I didn't trust anything. So I had a very opposite experience from Tiara. I question everything. This is how I became like a quadruple validator, because I was just like, I need validation on this. I am not going to accept it or trust it until I can validate this. And I would validate through automatic writing, which is how Tiara started channeling. I would validate it through tarot. I would validate it through dowsing because I do know how to dowse. And when my channeling did start to come in, they understood why I wanted that validation, but I also got yelled at a lot. They were just like, okay, so like one validation we get, like this is new to you, and then like by like the third or fourth time I was getting yelled at to stop. They were just like, how much more validation do you need? So it was a very opposite experience from Tiara. I just didn't believe anything. I thought I was going crazy. I That's actually how I found my acupuncturist, because I was just like, I was having all these ascension symptoms, which actually could be its own episode. And I was feeling all these ascension symptoms, and I was just like, I didn't feel right in my body, and I was like, I don't know what is going on. And so I found this reflexologist. I booked an appointment with her, and very, very skilled woman, and she was just like, I see this acupuncturist and he is excellent. I'm going to send you his contact. I want you to make an appointment. And that's how I came across him. And I like remember my first episode, God, my first appointment. And I walked in there and I was just kind of sharing some things about like my ascension journey, and I was sharing him some of my downloads, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm losing my mind. I actually think I'm going crazy. And he was like, you're not going crazy. I just think that your spiritual gifts are coming in. And so it was nice to also be validated by someone, a person that was not divination. Right? Because I also recognize that divination is not 100% accurate. And so I started to build this relationship with him where it's just like he would be validating some of the stuff. And so I'm just like, okay, so now I have a physical person that I can go and talk to and know that I'm not crazy. And so it's just such a different experience from Tiara's.
So I want to share a little bit about some of the ways I was misled. And I discovered, just as through being a channeler and some of the experiences that Ali and I have had, that there's a couple of things going on here when you get misled. It could be that there's an imposter energy that's there that's intentionally trying to mislead you. But I learned later on that apparently the ego can also distort the messages coming through the crown and twist it and shift it in a way that aligns with what the ego wants, which is its own rabbit hole. Like it's crazy what the mind can do when it comes to some of this stuff. But I just think that the masses need to be aware of this so that they can work to start building that discernment when it comes to what's coming through. But I had beings say things to me like about how I was in this higher frequency than I really was. I don't know why. I think it was probably just my ego. But what I heard was that I think they said 76 or 70 at the time when I was really 3D, but the message came through as that. I was misled about my journey. And I think there was once an entity that was talking about how I would come back as an ascended master or something like that, when I know the truth about the state of my soul and our soul family. And just like stuff like that, that was just so bizarre that I was like, I don't know why it's coming through this way. And I would go get validated through Ali because, she has the gift of discernment. And so, like, some of that stuff she was able to validate. And eventually, once I recognized that I was being misled so much, I stopped channeling because I was just like, this was just what I did. This was just something I chose to do for myself. I was just like, I need to step back because something's not right. I don't know why it's not right, but I need to step back and reflect and think about this whole channeling thing and what can be done differently so that I'm not always being misled. So I think I stopped channeling for a couple months, and I was like, nope, nope, not interested. I think I referred to tarot instead. Um, but at this point, I recognize there is a need for discernment. I do not have the gift of discernment. It's sort of something I'm hoping I'll come into as I do some of the deeper subconscious work. And I validate, well, first of all, I don't believe most of anything at this point. I just, again, that's just me. I know how my mind can distort. I know that there are imposter energies and entities that are service to self oriented out there. And for the most part, I don't really believe any of the messages that come through my channel. If there is something that does that resonates, I'm inclined to validate it at least twice. That's just how I operate right now. That's just me. As far as anyone else who channels, like, you could probably find your own methods and ways of validating information if you want to, especially if you feel like some of the stuff that's coming through doesn't resonate, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels off in some type of way. I would recommend validating or maybe seeking out another party who could validate some of that information on your behalf, whether it's just another form of divination or someone else who can channel, for example. If something's coming through and it's not resonating at all, yeah, consider validation if you want to continue to expand your channel. I would also recommend really diving into some of that subconscious stuff that's in there that's influencing the ego, because that's going to filter the stuff that comes through to you. It's going to get filtered through your ego. So we are always pushing and recommending for deeper subconscious work in any way that you can do it, just to dig in there and identify the shadows, bring the shadows to the light, because it will help you with channeling over the long term. So that was just how I went about it. Now, I do still channel on occasion. I don't to the degree that I did prior, just because, at this point, I don't really have that much of an interest. Um, but I do still. And again, I do like multiple forms of validation. That just gives me that peace of mind for several reasons, as I mentioned. So I hope that makes sense to some of you guys.
I want to go back to the ego distorting messages. I think this is really interesting. And I didn't really realize how many people were doing it until we were in channel. Pretty sure this was for YouTube. I hope it was for YouTube and our Patreon community. I believe we're talking to Toth. This was a long time ago, so I'm trying to jog my memory here. And I believe that we were talking to Toth or Thoth, however you guys like to pronounce it. And he was saying that unfortunately people do distort messages through their ego. It's like because we seek to understand, right? It's like when we channel, we might not be able to comprehend what is coming in, right? It's like when we read something, it's just kind of how our brains are programmed. So it's like if we're at school and if we read something or if we're reading something online, then, how many of you have ever been in a debate with someone or been in a conversation with someone and you guys have opposing views because you understood what you were reading or what was being spoken of differently? I would like to kind of link that together on how that can also work for channeled messages. It's like if you get a channeled message, then it's your responsibility to seek to understand that message. Now, this is where discernment comes in, because it's like you need to be able to know what part of that message is being understood from your ego and what part of that message is being understood from your intuition. And I think that is super fascinating. It could be its own episode.
It is so incredibly fascinating, which is why I wanted to have this conversation, because I just don't see enough conversation being had about this. And I don't know why, but it's so crucial and it's so important that we recognize the way our ego can impact the channels and work on discernments. Every channeler should have discernments, every single one. And that's just protective.
Tiara is absolutely right. And I believe what she was alluding to with all of that incredible information is one should really work on raising their vibration before they become a channeler. And I don't disagree at all. But I do want to back up for a second here, and I do want to talk about discernment. What is discernment? Because I feel like this isn't really a word that gets tossed around enough. And when you channel, you need it. There's just no other, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You need it. So, discernment is the ability to judge, understand, and make clear distinction between things, often involving a deep understanding of what is subtle or not obvious. It requires careful thought and the separation of different ideas, whether for making a sound judgment, perceiving something hidden, or understanding a situation from various perspectives. And that is super difficult to do, which I understand why it's considered a gift.
Would you say that a big component of discernment is just having intuition and using intuition?
Well, it's more than just intuition. It's also being able to understand. It's also being able to look at different perspectives and expand one's understanding and knowledge, and being able to then take the message and see it from the angle of the download that you're getting, and then decide from there if it's for your best and highest good, what is truth and what is not. And I think that that takes an incredibly high level of introspection, your ability to understand, your ability to break down what that message is really intended for, and then on top of it, using your intuition to know if it's from a real or fake entity. There are so many layers to discernment. I mean, if you just go back, and I was reading the definition. If you just go back and read it, I mean, it's saying involving a deep understanding of what is.
Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full upfront. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
Subtle or not
Right.
obvious. So so on a surface level, if you're just, getting downloads and it's like, for example, I'm going to go back to because you shared it, your Ascended Master one. I mean, you just trusted it. You didn't question it. You didn't think like, oh, what about me coming back as an Ascended Master? Like, what would make that true? Like, how do I know that that's real? How would I find out? What validation am I looking for? Where would I go? You were just like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. That's actually very helpful. I know that intuitive piece is a part of it. So it sounds like it's definitely multiple layers that sort of come together that make discernment the ability that it is. Thank you for breaking that down.
Oh, it absolutely is. It is. This goes so much deeper than just, oh, my intuition tells me it's accurate, so I just have to trust it. No. You actually have to understand it. You have to understand the unseen. You have to be excellent at judgment making. You have to be excellent at distinguishing between different things. You have to be able to separate the message of what is genuine, what might be misleading. This goes so much deeper than just intuition.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for breaking that down. Because again, I was never taught this. I They didn't even say to us to be intuitive about the messages that came through. Like it was just not mentioned in any way, shape, or form. So, it's just been a lot of trial and error on my part, unfortunately. And uh, it's been very insightful to know and understand what it does truly take in order to really receive the message the way that the message is meant to be received. So, thank you for sharing that.
Of course. And I do think that people need to understand what discernment is and how to use discernment, because so many people just hear messages and want to do a service to the collective, which I love. And I want to keep encouraging that. But at the same time, you have to be careful because you don't know what message you are sending out to the masses. You have no idea what message you're sending out to the masses because you have no idea where it came from. Like I would question, you know, I have friends who can also channel, and they have told me these wild stories where I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't seem right. Like why would they take you there? Or why would you have that type of experience? That doesn't sound like something a guide would do.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It's just so many people just trust the information, and it's like, and I used to see it. I don't see it so much anymore because I think, social media has filtered out a lot of that content for, their own agenda, which I totally get. But I mean, I would just see people used to just be like, "Oh, I got to download," and like if they were driving and they would pull over to the side of the road and they would fire up that phone and be like, "I just got this download and I have to share it with everyone."
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that's beautiful, but at the same time, I also question those things because I'm just like, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are in your ascension journey. I don't know how much work you've done. Who knows what you're channeling? Who knows where that message came from? And I just don't think enough people question the information that they're getting. I don't think enough people, and that's why I said, like, I had a very opposite experience to yours, Tiara. I was questioning everything. I did not trust anything. I went down, I would take it and I would receive it and I was open to it, but then I would investigate everything down to its like until I was at the bottom of the pot.
Mm.
Like there was no more investigating to be done.
Mm. Very interesting. And at this point, I follow a similar strategy, but I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff I receive, I usually just set to the side or discard until it can be validated, unless it resonates heavily, as I mentioned earlier. So I don't know if my approach is exactly like Ali's. If it's something that's really
Well,
interesting.
I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore though, and you know that because I've worked on my gifts. Like I've worked on discernment. I've worked on building that trust.
Right, right,
I've
right.
worked on building the trust with the entities that I channel. I have gotten to know them. I have gotten familiar with their energy. I wasn't someone I am someone who wanted to rush the process along because I'm an overachiever and ego bit. That was all ego
Yeah.
though. But like in terms of, just getting the download and sharing it with the world, I've never done that. Even to this day, I still don't share what I get with the world because I understand the importance of keeping something
Mm.
sacred,
Yeah.
oversharing. We shouldn't be oversharing. Because I understand more about their teachings. It's like not all the information that we receive is meant for the world to know.
Mm.
And that's something that I think other people should know and be aware of.
You said something really interesting that was emphasized in my channeling course, and that was building relationships with entities. Like they did say, when it comes to all the entities that they channel the exact same beings from their group of guides, and they don't stray from that unless an entity comes to them, usually in the form of a deceased person or just a curious being. Uh, and so that's something that I think is really important and significant, something that I haven't seen emphasized also in the same way in some of the other circles when it comes to channeling. But yeah, creating and building that relationship with the beings you do channel or your guides, just getting a sense of what their energy feels like is huge. Like, that's so significantly important. And then as you build that relationship, like that channeling within that and with them becomes stronger over time. So that was something that was definitely emphasized and really important when it comes to the channeling journey. And I'm glad they shared that. That was probably one of the most valuable pieces of information that they did share, because it kind of goes to show how important it is to build those relationships with the beings that you work with over time.
Absolutely, of course. And so channeling is such a beautiful gift. I love it. It has changed my life in so many ways, and I understand why so many people want it and want to learn it, because there's such incredible attributes to it. But at the same time, if you are not healed properly, if you haven't ascended properly, if you have not raised your vibrations, then there's also so much caution and warning that comes with activating your psychic abilities, because unfortunately, like, I have been told other stories from people that I've met or know, and at the beginning of your awakening, people get so excited and so enamored, or they're confused and they're seeking to understand and they want clarity and they want a direction, and you feel really lost. And I get all that, but you have to be careful when you start, just welcoming all this information. This goes back to our episode about spiritual psychosis, because people, want a sense of belonging. People want to feel like they have a purpose in this crazy world that we live in. And so people just start introducing all of this stuff to their nervous system. And Tiara and I have been there, we have done that. And people introduce all the stuff into their nervous system and like into their mind and new perspectives. And it's millions of different rabbit holes, especially if you're a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, you have to be careful with that, though, like the amount that you're introducing and how quickly you're introducing it, because that's when things like psychosis can happen. And so you have to tread lightly through the waters, especially in the beginning, and take your time with it. And unfortunately, Tiara and I didn't do that. I did in different aspects, but in other aspects of my spiritual journey, I didn't do that at all. I was just like, you know, foot full throttle on the gas pedal and full speed ahead. And, I fortunately had the team to be like, whoa, 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 like, let's slow it down. And I'm just like, no, 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 no interest in slowing it down. And they were like, yeah, no, we need to slow this down. So I was very fortunate to have divine intervention in different aspects of my spiritual journey. But I do want to emphasize the importance of working on yourself, treading lightly in the beginning. And if you really, really do want to become a channeler, if you have that gift, then I really hope that you find this episode and come across this episode, because there are really important messages and valuable information about, having the ego distorted, and how important discernment is and what discernment is. Because I think Tiara is also one of those people that just believed, oh, well, discernment's just intuition. I just have to trust my intuition and bam, I have discernment. No, it's so many more layers.
Gosh, discernment could probably be its own episode, because I do see people talk about discernment and the need for it when it comes to divination, whether that's tarot and so forth. What I have not seen is A, how to do it, B, what it looks like. So you guys probably aren't going to get this information in many other sources. So if you do come across this episode and you're a channeler, we would love to hear your thoughts or feedback, or if even if there's something else in regards to channeling that you would be curious to know about or learn, please do take advantage of us as a resource. You can reach out to us on YouTube or Instagram or even on Facebook. Just shoot us a message, a direct message, and we'll get it. It's just, I just think this is such an important topic. And even in my own experience, I just don't see this information in other channeling circles, not on any channeling courses or training programs, which still blows my mind. So if you guys are channelers, if you're curious in channeling, we would love to hear your thoughts and feedback because this is so important. And, it can be a continuing conversation. It just kind of depends on what you guys want to hear. So we welcome any thoughts or feedback you might have.
So I just want to touch upon Tiara's experience, and I hope she's okay with me sharing this.
Yes, of course.
It's when I'm going to go back to the Ascended Masterpiece because I was fairly new to channeling at this point. And I remember after she sent me that message, her guide came to me and was like, whoa, 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 whoa. He was just like, I'm going to need you to channel for me. And we're going to teach her the lesson. And I was like, oh my God, I have no idea where this is going. And this was a really pivotal day for Tiara because she was just like, what are you talking about? Like, I was always told to trust the message.
Mhm.
And like, here is her guide being like, you have been lied to, lied to, lied to. You have been lied to about what frequency you are at. You are not at a 7D frequency. You are not coming back as an ascended master. You need to do your research. And she's like, what does any of this mean?
Yeah.
And this is really the pivotal moment in Tiara's and I's spiritual journey where I kind of became more of a teacher, like teacher student, even though we're best friends. And she was just like, her world got turned upside down. And for anyone who has had that type of guidance where you think like you're this profound channeler and then like some type of guide or someone else has kind of been that mirror for you, that mirror that you've been needing, saying like, no, you're being misled. I would like Tiara to share a little bit about how jarring that was, because I know it was very jarring for her and like how she navigated it.
Oh, yeah. So I mentioned earlier that I actually stopped channeling. And that was the reason why. That's how jarring it was. It was jarring enough that I knew something was wrong. I didn't quite know why something was wrong. But it was also kind of scary because you're thinking, well, I've gone on this spiritual journey. And so far, it's been a very beautiful one, but I start running into some of the shadow and the darkness. And then I'm just like, you know what? I don't think I want any part. So I'm just going to not channel. And I didn't channel for months. And I was perfectly content with that at the time, to the point where I was debating walking from spirituality altogether. And I know that that's something that has happened. I think we've seen that happen with Doreen Virtue. She was the woman who created the angel oracle decks, beautiful angel oracle decks, and she was a channeler. And she walked away from all of that because the theory goes is that she stumbled into imposter energies and recognized that that was a lot of what she was channeling and decided that spirituality was evil, which I completely understand. Like I get it. So no, it was very jarring. It was scary. And I recognized that I think it was at that point actually that I learned that I couldn't trust myself and I didn't trust myself. And so since that point, I have slowly eased back into channeling. But as I said, I don't trust 99% of the messages at this point, even if they do resonate. And so, as far as how I navigated that, it was sort of a slow transition back. Like I transitioned to using other tools of divination. namely tarot, because I knew that tarot was something that I really loved, and I knew that I was good at tarot. And at least when it came to that, I trusted myself, but I felt like I couldn't trust myself with channeling, and I didn't. Um, and so I did slowly ease back into divination, and then slowly over time, I had to like build up that confidence again when it came to channeling. And I think it was actually being urged to do that, to get back into channeling, even though I didn't want to. I did slowly try to like build up some semblance of a sense of confidence when it came to it, at least so I could get the messages and then discard them later if I wanted to. So it just took time, and it took healing and working through some shadow. Um, as far as that sense of trust that I had, I don't have that right now. That doesn't mean I never will. It's just I personally want to work on building up that um, sense of discernment, that capability of discernment, before I feel like I can trust any message coming through. Um, and again, that's just my personal choice. So it's a process, and it's gradual, and it takes practice, and it takes time, and it takes working through some of the things that are there that could potentially be affecting the channels coming in and the way your ego distorts. And it's a process that could take years. So you do have to be patient with yourself and practice compassion toward yourself, because again, channeling is it's it's its own journey in a nutshell. I hope that that's a little helpful to some of you guys.
So was your underlying message just take your time with it?
Ultimately, more or less, yes. But again, you still have to work through the things that make you feel like you can't trust yourself or trust the message, or that might be distorting the message. So essentially, I'm advising for doing shadow work and doing the deeper work that's needed and necessary if you want to get back into channeling and be able to trust and understand the messages coming through the way that they are meant to and intended. And I know that for me, that's going to be a very long process and journey for me. So I'm taking that gradual approach. And at this time, I do like to double or triple validate things. If I do not do that, or I just don't get to it, the message gets discarded, unless again it resonates, and even then like I still usually discard it. So that's just my method of operating at this time.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think the underlying message of this episode as a whole is you need to tread lightly when it comes to spirituality, because there is so much misleading information, which we have talked about like almost to ad nauseum on this podcast, because there's so many important steps and so many important factors, and like there's just so many important things that are involved in the spiritual journey that people need to be aware of, because not enough people are talking about this. Like so many people are just like, come into your personal power, reconnect with your intuition, and follow the light, and all is great in the world. And I'm just like, no, no, no.
Well, and it makes sense that Ross said what he said in some of those channelings about how you need to do the deeper work if you want to be able to connect with me and receive the information as was intended. Like, that's huge. And again, I don't know why this information isn't more widely expressed or communicated, but it makes total sense that that would be the process. And so, and I'm sure for other gifts and abilities, it's a similar process. Like you kind of have to heal your way into them to use them effectively. I think that makes sense. But it's so significantly important for channeling too, because now we're talking about receiving information that could make or break your journey. And that's just so, so important to keep in mind and consider.
Oh, I love how you said make or break your journey, because Tiara has quit. I mean, what are we on, like round 100 of threatening to quit now?
Oh, I threaten to quit every other day. So, like, Tiarra is
Exactly. So
tired.
we might be on round like 1,000 maybe at this point.
Tiarra is exhausted. Let's just say that. Um, but yeah, no, I do threaten to quit like every other day. But it's not easy stuff, guys. It's not easy stuff. So I hope this was helpful. We're not here to discourage
Not that
anyone
we
from,
want to
yeah,
discourage you.
yeah, from channeling. That was not the intention. To discourage anyone was not the intention. Keep doing what you're doing. Just take into consideration.
The intention is, yes, the intention is just to be informative,
Yeah,
because not enough people are informing in my humble opinion in the right manner. I feel
right.
like a lot of people are being misled.
Agreed.
And Tiara was deeply misled by other spiritual coaches, other mentors online. Don't believe anything you read online, people. Just don't. I've been wanting to go. I recently discovered like the dead internet theory, and we are going to go down this rabbit hole on this podcast because I think that there's so much truth behind it. And this rabbit hole goes so deep, and I can't wait to talk about it, but it's not going to be in this episode. So you have to have discernment. You need to work on yourself in order to raise your vibration to receive the information more clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you guys know we like rabbit holes. So uh, we're going to talk a little bit more about like the online spaces and how distorted almost all the information is. I will say when it came to my channeling class, it was actually in person, which was great because like I think I was kind of at a stage where I was getting so much distorted information from the internet anyway. So, it was nice to be able to go and actually see these individuals and do that in person. And again, I'm still forever grateful to them. I just wanted to fill in some of the gaps from that course. And, as me and Ali have discussed, I've been doing that through trial and error for the most part. So it's a journey, it's a process. I will keep you guys updated when it comes to that journey and process because I get the feeling that a lot of us are going to be doing the same things if you decide to take this path, which I think is, a good idea if you're a channeler. So stay tuned, you
And
guys.
just to be clear, I just want to, before we wrap up this episode, which we are doing, I just want to be clear. So they never got back to you on that email when you were just like, what about discernment?
Never, ever. Nope. It didn't
So
even
there you
go. It
go.
didn't even go to my spam because I was checking spam too. I never heard back, which is weird. And it's so interesting because I feel like they saw it. I don't know if it's intuitive. I don't know what it is, but I just get this feeling that they did see my message. They just didn't say anything. I don't know. It's really weird.
Okay. So maybe like that's why you also have to be careful about who you work with, because they might not know about things like discernment. They might not know about things like imposter energies. I mean, that's exactly why Doreen Virtue did what she did, because she was like, I just trusted everything, and I was on this journey and I thought I was helping people, and then she felt very jarred
Mm,
when she found out she was being deceived, and
yeah.
she was just like, nope, going back to, I think she went back to Christianity
Yeah.
or to God or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you guys, like, I mean, this is why people share these stories about being misled, because there isn't enough of this going around.
Agreed. Agreed.
So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And I hope this episode comes across you, especially if you are a channeler or interested in learning channeling, because these are important things. And, this is why Tiara and I do have the podcast, because we have such different experiences and we both have very interesting perspectives to add to these episodes through personal experience. And we learn through personal experience. You have to experience it to learn it. How are you going to know what's real, fake, if you don't try?
Mm,
And then go down a path and then get turned around in the middle of your path. It's like, this is how we learn. We
mm,
have to try to do these things in learn from them, because we're not going to get it right the first time. I certainly haven't gotten it right the first time, which is why my team is like, nope, turn around. And I'm just annoyed. And that's when I want to quit. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I'm always doing everything wrong. And so I like go in the wrong direction all the
I'm sorry, I
time.
don't mean to laugh.
And then I find out that that's what I'm doing. And then I get frustrated and I'm like, I'm tired. I don't know what else you want from me. I am trying. I sent Ali a TikTok of a guy who was trying
Yes.
to, like, it was just so perfectly reflective of my journey. And he was reading a manual, an instruction manual, and he had like a cord that he was plugging into an outlet. And the manual was like, all right, so plug in the cord. And then he plugged it in, and then he took it out early. And the instructions were like, all right, if you took out the cord early, then don't plug it back in. But then he plugged it back in, and then he just got so frustrated. And I was like, that's exactly what this feels like. So that's why I threaten to quit every other day. I got it. I'm trying to get better at that. But, it's not easy, guys. It's not easy. So we're here for you. And if you want to swap stories or feedback or thoughts, please do reach out because we want to be that resource for you guys.
Indeed. So thank you, everyone. And I hope everyone has a fantastic week. And thank you for tuning in and listening.
Yes, thanks, you guys.